You remembered my name." The 6-year-old boy looked up at Wren Hartley with eyes that held too much understanding for his age. His little sister, barely 4, clutched his hand tighter, her stomach growling audibly in the alley behind Riverside Diner. "Of course I did, Jasper," Wren said softly, kneeling down in her stained waitress uniform. "And you're poet, right, sweetheart?" She smiled at the little girl, who nodded shyly. "I have something for you both. Wait right here." She slipped back through the kitchen door, her heart aching the way it had every evening for the past 3 weeks since she'd first found them digging through the dumpster. Now she came prepared. Tonight's paper bag held 6 dinner rolls, 2 containers of soup, and the turkey sandwich her manager had said to throw away because a customer complained it had too much mayo. "Here," she whispered, handing it to Jasper. "There's soup this time, still warm." "Thank you, Miss Wren," Jasper said, his voice cracking with gratitude. "We'll pay you back someday, I promise." "You don't owe me anything, honey. You just take care of your sister." What Wren didn't notice was the man in the worn jacket standing at the corner of the alley, watching the entire exchange. Thaddeus Morrison had been working undercover at his own restaurant chain for 2 months, trying to understand why 3 locations were failing while others thrived. Riverside Diner was his last stop. He'd expected to find theft, negligence, maybe substance abuse among staff. He hadn't expected to find kindness. Wren Hartley was 26, though exhaustion made her look older. She'd moved to the city 5 years ago with a portfolio of paintings and dreams of attending art school. Her mother had died when Wren was 19, cancer that consumed their savings and left Wren with $30,000 in medical debt. Art school became a fantasy. Survival became the goal. She'd taken the waitressing job because it paid weekly and let her work doubles. Her apartment was a studio barely bigger than a closet, where she painted in the 2 hours before dawn when the light was softest. Her canvases leaned against walls, unsigned and unseen, landscapes that held all the beauty she couldn't afford to live in. But every night for 3 weeks, she'd set aside food for Jasper and Poet, the children who'd appeared one evening, thin and scared, rummaging for dinner. She'd learned their story in fragments: parents dead in a house fire 6 months ago, living with an aunt who drank away her welfare checks, sleeping in a car when the aunt brought home men. Thaddeus watched Wren hand over the food with the same careful gentleness his own mother had shown him when he was young and she was cleaning houses to feed him, before the inheritance from his estranged father gave them a way out, before he built an empire and forgot what hunger felt like. The next day, Thaddeus showed up for his undercover shift early. He watched Wren work, how she gave larger portions to the elderly man who came in every Tuesday with shaking hands, how she paid for a struggling college student's coffee without being asked, how she pocketed dinner rolls throughout her shift with practiced discretion. "You're stealing bread," he said during their break, keeping his voice neutral. Wren's face went white. She'd known this job was temporary, they all were, but she'd hoped to last through the winter. "I can explain." "I'm not management," Thaddeus said quickly, seeing her panic. "I'm just curious. What do you do with it?" She could have lied, should have lied, but something in his eyes, maybe the exhaustion that matched her own, made her tell the truth. "There are 2 kids, Jasper and Poet. They're living out of a car with an aunt who doesn't feed them. I give them leftovers, food that would have been thrown away anyway. I fire me if you want. I'll find another job, but I'm not stopping." Thaddeus was quiet for a long moment. "Show me." That evening he followed her to the alley.
watched as Jasper and Poet emerged from shadows, their faces lighting up when they saw Wren. Watched as she knelt in her worn sneakers, distributed food like communion, asked about Poet's cough and whether Jasper was still reading the library book she'd mentioned. "Miss Wren," Poet whispered, "I drew you a picture at the shelter." She pulled out a crumpled paper, a crayon drawing of a woman with yellow hair holding a son. "That's you. You're our son." Wren's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful, baby. I'm going to keep it forever." After the children left, Thaddeus stepped into the light. "How long have you been doing this?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. Wren studied him warily. "Are you going to report me?" "No," he said. "I'm going to ask you something else." "Why? You barely make minimum wage. You're tired. You could walk away. Why these kids?" "Because no one helped me," she said simply. "When mom was dying, when I was 19 and terrified and drowning in bills, everyone looked away. I learned what it feels like to be invisible, to be hungry, not just for food, but for someone to see you, to care that you exist." She met his eyes. "I can't save the whole world, but I can save 2 kids, even if it's just one meal at a time." Thaddeus felt something crack open in his chest, the part he'd sealed off when success came, when charity became a tax write-off instead of a personal act. "I want to help," he said. Over the next month, Thaddeus kept coming back. He learned that Wren painted, that she dreamed in colors she couldn't afford. He learned that Jasper wanted to be a teacher, that Poet was afraid of thunderstorms and loved stories about dragons. He learned that Wren's kindness wasn't occasional, it was constant, exhausting, unsustainable. He also learned that he was falling in love. Not with her beauty, though she was beautiful in the way sunrise is beautiful, quietly, without asking for attention. Not with gratitude, though he was grateful to remember what mattered, but with her spirit, the part of her that gave when she had nothing, that saw people, that refused to look away. One evening he finally told her the truth. "I'm not just a line cook, Wren. I'm Thaddeus Morrison. I own Riverside Diner. I own 43 restaurants. I came here undercover because I'd forgotten what they were for, and you reminded me." She stared at him, betrayed. "You've been lying to me?" "Yes, and I'm sorry. But I'm not lying about this. I want to help Jasper and Poet properly. Foster care, legal guardianship, whatever they need, I want to fund it. And I want to fund something else. Your art. A gallery show. Art school if you want it. Not because you owe me. Because the world deserves to see what you create." "Why?" she whispered. "Because my mother used to say that we're measured by what we give when giving costs us everything. You taught me that again. And because somewhere along the way, I fell in love with who you are. Not what you could be, who you already are." 6 months later, Jasper and Poet lived with a foster family Thaddeus had carefully vetted and financially supported. Wren's paintings hung in a downtown gallery, landscapes that made people weep for beauty they'd forgotten existed, and Thaddeus and Wren met every Thursday at Riverside Diner, not as CEO and employee, but as 2 people who'd learned that love isn't about grand gestures, it's about showing up. It's about bread in paper bags and paint on canvas and remembering names when everyone else forgets. "You're still our son, Miss Wren," Poet said one evening, visiting the gallery with Jasper. "No, sweetheart," Wren replied, pulling them both close. "We're all each other's son. That's how light works. We share it." And maybe that's the truest thing about kindness. It multiplies in the giving. 1 meal becomes 2. 2 children become hope. And hope, if we're brave enough to share it, becomes love.